What we want is for our mind to have the same kind of wisdom that our body has, the kind of wisdom that knows the best moves to make, when to sweat, when to pee, when to get up and stretch or yawn, or when to cry. Can our minds be that wise? I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrzych.com or on Instagram at heathergrzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Have you found that it's hard to make decisions sometimes? Well, we all go through times in our life when we're unsure of that best path to take. Sometimes we may be pondering something very big, like a big life decision. And then sometimes we get stuck on some very small decision, like what to eat for dinner. It's not fun, right? When you're spinning, ruminating, or sometimes even holding out on decisions. Some of us actually are even putting decisions in front of ourselves where there really isn't one to be made. So whenever we get caught in these kind of loops, that doesn't feel good. That's part of the monkey mind. Now, your heart is so powerful. You want to let it be powerful. Your heart is electric, and it extends an electromagnetic field around your body. The heartbeat literally travels into the ether around you, and it will affect the world around you, just like your actions will affect the world around you. So when we listen to the heart, our decisions are very easy. And then the environment around us can feel the effects of being in touch with that. But many of us have not followed our hearts for one reason or another. And if you're asking yourself how to follow your heart, then first we actually have to look at, well, what are you following if you're not following your heart? What's driving your decisions in your life? And there are many decision-making tools out there. Many of these tools are geared toward just keeping you thinking, to be perfectly honest. Because if you have a human mind, your mind probably wanders, and it probably has a lot of thoughts. People get so freaked out when they first start meditating because they realize how many thoughts they have. They realize that they have this monkey mind. And I've heard people tell me that they get anxiety just from sitting there with their own thoughts. When I first learned to meditate, there was a woman in my class. I remember her saying that she was getting a lot of anxiety when we would sit to meditate. And so I learned to meditate in my yoga teacher training many years ago, and we had to sit for 30 minutes and we weren't really given a lot of instruction. It really wasn't guided. You're just sort of like thrown off on your own. And I was very surprised by, how I felt when I got into that space. I quite liked it. I didn't feel necessarily anxiety myself, but I realized that it was the first time in my life that no one was telling me what to do, or I wasn't really living my life in that moment in some way that was really being driven by someone else's desires for my life or needs or anything like that. So it felt very indulgent to be in my own thoughts, and I was very fascinated by them. But when we're given the reins of our own life and our own mind, it can be scary. It can be very scary for some people, and it can be a little bit scary for others. And just like this one woman I mentioned, we had almost 40 people in my yoga teacher training, and she was getting this overwhelming anxiety every time she meditated. And turns out she was actually about 6 weeks pregnant. And that's a time when you don't typically tell people that you're pregnant because it's so early. But because we were doing this yoga teacher training, and she really had to disclose this to the teacher, and it was important that she share that with the group here. So in this group session, she shared with the teacher that she was getting anxiety every time she meditated. And I remember her so vividly because she had tried to get pregnant with her ex-husband for a long time and it didn't happen. And then she ended up meeting someone else and getting pregnant with him immediately. And that really resonated with me because at the time I was trying to get pregnant with my husband. This was when I was in my early 30s and we weren't getting pregnant. And I started to wonder, why that wasn't happening. And perhaps the question was for me, why were their bodies as compatible as the minds felt they were? And it turns out that as I personally listened to my body more, I actually didn't even want to get pregnant. That was one of the things I discovered. But my body was not on the same page as my mind. My mind was saying, oh, yes, you must have a child. You are 31, 32 years old. It's time to do this. So that woman really stuck out to me and that anxiety that she felt in that time. And a lot of people will experience this kind of anxiety. The meditation method that we were using was to notice our thoughts. And then whenever we would watch ourselves chase any of these thoughts down a train and try to follow it out further, we were simply just to let the thought go. So you could call it a letting go of the thoughts meditation, stopping yourself from indulging, stopping yourself from chasing the monkey mind, because a lot of people realize they have a monkey mind, but they don't realize that there's something that they could actually choose to do differently to not indulge the monkey mind. But what a lot of people don't, I guess, own up to or realize is that a monkey mind is a default when you have a brain with information in it. Sometimes you realize you put your head down on the pillow at night and you just are recalling the things that happened in the day. Or sometimes you're working on something at work, on a problem, and you go into bed and you're still working that problem out, or you have a dream about that problem about work, that you're trying to solve in your head. So when you're meditating on your own, like the kind of meditation where you're going to sit for a few moments of quiet time, cutting off your sensory input, noticing your own mind, being in a space to be able to do that, you first have to reconcile that you have a monkey mind and you have to just accept it. It's just a thing. It's not just you, it's everyone. Everyone has a monkey mind at some point. And most people have one very frequently. So take comfort in the fact that you are the norm, not the exception, and that there's nothing abnormal about you that you have to worry about. Because I think a lot of people will shy away from meditation because they think that, well, I have a monkey mind, I can't meditate. Well, that's exactly why you do meditate. So once you sit there and you notice your mind, you get to notice what's in your mind, the content. What are the thoughts saying? And how quickly does the mind go from topic to topic? Or does it get stuck on a topic for a while? Which topics is it following? Are your thoughts in the past or the future more? Now, once you are there, you want to start to let the thoughts go, except your mind is so deeply trained to have thoughts. So then how can you just let them go, right? When people sit in meditation, sometimes they notice a feeling in their bodies more, like a pain, maybe a pain or some pleasure, or possibly even some desire, a feeling in the body. Maybe I sit in meditation and I notice that I'm hungry. The pregnant woman in my yoga teacher training noticed she had anxiety and then she couldn't meditate. It was hard for her. Funny that years later, when I was actually pregnant, I noticed I was very nauseous when I was pregnant, and I couldn't meditate in the way that I was used to because I was so nauseous that every time I meditated, it was too much focus on my body. And so I had to figure out some other way to meditate. And similarly, many people who have chronic pain, they have a difficulty meditating. But the whole purpose of yoga in these classical traditions is to get your body into a state that it's not a distraction for your meditation. It's like get the body out of the way so that you can move into your meditation. So if you're feeling a bunch of discomfort, then that discomfort is going to grab your attention. It's going to make it hard for you to concentrate your energy on anything else other than that thing that doesn't feel good. But I don't accept when people tell me that they can't meditate, because I actually believe everyone can meditate. I think you just have to find the right meditation method and then practice it for a while. And that method may be really super different than you are expecting a meditation to be. And I think you have to stick with it, even through the discomfort, in order to get the benefits of it. But let's say that you want to practice going inward because you want to connect with your inner spirit, like your inner voice or your intuition, because you have some big decisions to make, right? You could focus on your body feelings. You could focus on your thoughts. You could focus on letting go of your thoughts. But the question is, any of this going to help you in your day-to-day life? Is any of this going to help you make the very best decisions that allow you to have peace of mind, that allow you to have health in your body, that allow you to be able to rest in yourself and trust in yourself and live like a really super beautiful life? So what do you do with your mind when you sit in silence? What do you do with it? Do you just let it run amok? Do you try to direct it when no one is telling you really what to do? And the only thing you've been told in your life, which most of us have experienced, is what not to do. I do this to my child all the time. I say, no. And we were all told no growing up. So you can be obedient and you can try not to do the thing that you were told not to do, like a good girl or a good boy, or you can be rebellious and you can do exactly the thing that you were told not to do, right? Children do this. You tell them, oh, don't touch that toy anymore. And they just want to touch it more. When we grow up, sometimes we still act like children. This is being in our baby mind, being in our child mind. The word for this in the yogic literature is tamasic mind, in a tamasic mind. It's when we feel that something else is in control of the world other than us. So when we try to do these meditation methods, what's the right one in order to determine the best path to take forward for our life? Because that's typically why we're there, right? Maybe we want less stress, but there's like some other thing that we want. And I'll tell you that when I first started meditating, I would often be given this directive at the beginning of the meditation. Okay, do this. And then you go off on your own for 30 minutes. But I found I couldn't follow the directions at first. I couldn't follow them until I went through like a series of mental exercises to rein my mind in. So I had to repeat some things that I had memorized in order to get my energy to focus. And then once I could get my own energy to focus, then I could do what it was that I was tasked with doing in that moment for that 30 minutes. But I couldn't actually get myself there in the beginning. I needed a little bit more repetition and a little bit more structure in order to get into this like surrendered space. For me, I was like just repeating these yoga poses that I had learned in a sequence in my head, and I had memorized them. And it took a few minutes for me to recall it. And then I could do, what I needed to do. Because part of meditation is learning specifically what helps you surrender. Many people like to concentrate on chakras when they're sitting in meditation. That's another alternative to focusing on your thoughts. And some will practice a mantra or even recite prayers to still the mind and bring forth a more intuitive state. These are all very good. Okay. Some people have to journal about it, and that's also good. But once you have finally found your inner self, once you meet that inner self, locate it, get in touch with it, then perhaps you ask yourself a question once you're there. If you're looking to make a decision, if there's a decision that you wish to make, and if you're a person in the world with a brain, then you probably spend a lot of time thinking about that decision. You may sit and kind of toil in your own head about it. Maybe you make pros and cons lists. Maybe you start Googling your question and looking for tools to help you make that decision. Perhaps you ask your friends, your mentors, your teachers, your colleagues. But if your goal is to follow your heart, which is very brave to do, then you need a practice that allows you to listen to it. Many of the things I've mentioned so far are following your mind. They're following your thoughts. But to make a decision, you must make it with your heart. So then the question is, what is your heart? And why do you want to follow it? Are you literally focusing on your heart, that thing that beats in the center of your chest, or are you focusing on something else? And what exactly is it that you're feeling here in the center of your chest? Is it a chakra? So your heart chakra is It's not actually just your heart organ. They're related, but they're different. Your heart is slightly on the left side, though a very small percentage of people actually have a heart on the right side more. But most people have this heart and it's a little bit over on the left side. Your heart chakra is in the area of the heart, but it is also in the area of your lungs and your thymus gland and all of these surrounding tissues and fluids in the chest area, including some nerves, connective tissue, and your sternum or your breastbone. Like even your esophagus is deeper here into the heart chakra. So for women, even the breasts are in this area. Chakras are energy centers that we get certain sensations in, and these sensations are triggered by the external environment calling them out, or from an internal intention, kind of lighting them up. You can let chakras happen from the outside in, or you can direct them. So regarding the organs near the heart chakra, well, first, obviously, we have the heart itself. And this heart, it's responsible for pumping your blood. And that blood, it pumps all the way to the periphery of your body. And that blood is filled with prana, and it's filled with other good nutritive stuff that's going to go all the way throughout your body, permeates everywhere. And your heart is so hardworking. And it's like this hardworking, consistent player in your body. And it's always, always, always working. You don't actually have to think your way into getting your heart to work, do you? No. So the word for heart in Sanskrit is hridaya. And this word hridaya is really beautiful because it's made up of these three characters that each have their own meaning. And the first means receives, the second means gives, and the third means it just keeps doing it over and over and over again. So the heart, the hridaya, it receives, it gives, and it just keeps doing it over and over and over again. So the heart is involved in this prana center of your body. The prana is often described as the life force, energy that animates all things. And it enters your body through the in-breath. And from there, it's circulated throughout the body through the cardiovascular system. There's a couple other ways that prana can get in. But in general, this is where a lot of the prana is coming into the body. So when we inhale this air, it enters our lungs and it goes, through our nostrils or our mouth, and it's rich in oxygen. And then that oxygen is essential for our cells to be able to produce energy. So as we inhale, the air travels through the trachea, through the windpipe, and it branches off into these smaller tubes located in the lungs. And they end in these air sacs, and that's surrounded by networks of blood vessels, capillaries. And this oxygen from the air enters the bloodstream through the walls of these little things called the alveoli, and it binds to the hemoglobin modules in your red blood cells, and it's carried, to the heart. And then the heart is this muscular organ that pumps the blood throughout the body via this network of arteries and veins. And anyway, so you get the point. The prana comes in through the lungs, and then it makes its way into the heart, and then it gets sent everywhere through the arteries to all the parts of the body. So amazing. So this heart area is a source of prana. It's a source of prana because as this blood has traveled, through the heart and it goes through the arteries, or we call them dhamanis in Sanskrit, it carries this oxygen and all the nutrients to the different parts of the body. And it's what enlivens the body. Yeah. So if you have a strong cardiovascular system, then you should assume that your heart chakra energy is also strong, right? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's not the only thing. Okay. So let's see what other organs we have in this heart chakra. So we have the lungs, right? They're surrounding the heart, and the lungs are the main organs of the respiratory system. And these lungs are two of them, and they play a critical role in exchanging the oxygen and the carbon dioxide between the air that we breathe in and the blood in our body. So when you inhale, you breathe in, and the air enters through your nose or your mouth. Yeah. And then it goes through your throat and it enters your lungs. And then your lungs they have these little sacs in them, these alveoli, and the walls of these alveoli are very thin. And the reason that they're thin is because they need to have the oxygen pass through them and to your bloodstream. Okay. So And then on the out breath, the carbon dioxide is kind of coming out of the blood through the alveoli, and then that gets exhaled out of the body. So they're semi-permeable, they're very thin. And the function of the lungs is to bring in this oxygen to support all of your metabolic functions, everything, all these processes in your body, and also to remove the carbon dioxide wastes. Because if you have too much carbon dioxide, it's harmful when you have too much of it in your body. You want all this to be in balance. So it's through the lungs that we actually maintain the balance of prana in the body. It's through the lungs that we do this. You want your lungs to be healthy so that you can have healthy prana, so that your energy is balanced. Yeah. So you don't have like too much prana and you're not crazy manic, and you don't have too little prana and you have like no energy at all. And you feel very low. So these lungs have a thin layer of tissue that protects them, because what happens is there's a fluid that gets secreted that lubricates these tissues. And this is called the pleura. And in Ayurveda, when our attachment and our fear responses are in check, then this fluid is in balance. But this fluid is very much related to our love, our attachment, and our fear. When we are overly attached, then we will have an excess of this fluid. And when we are too detached, then this fluid will be drying out. So feelings of love will increase the fluid, and then feelings of fear will decrease the fluid. And other things can change this fluid as well, the level of it, such as like what kinds of things you're eating, things that you have done in your lifestyle behaviors, and also weather and age. But how we feel is a huge factor for this particular lubricating fluid that's here. And you can't discount how much our feelings affect our bodies, because they do. They absolutely affect our bodies. Modern medicine just hasn't really done the best job of explaining to people how that happens, because it has separated the mind and the body. But traditional medicines like Ayurveda didn't separate like that. The Ayurvedic medical texts are actually written in poems. Yeah. So that tells you a lot about the fact that the information that is transmitted is in a poem. The medicine is in a poem. Just imagine reading a medical text and a poem. It is so beautiful. And along this lines of like following your heart, a poem will speak to your heart so much more than other kinds of reading, will it not? It just touches your heart. Yeah. So if you breathe in and out a couple times, just do that here. You breathe in and out a couple times, just observing your chest. You know, we think that as you keep breathing here, you know, oftentimes we think that we are breathing in and out, that we think that maybe our lungs are like a muscle, but they're more passive than we think. There are muscles around the lungs that move them, like the diaphragm, the intercostals, like different muscles around the chest and the back and the belly. These are the ones that move the lungs. The lungs themselves are not like a big muscle. You know, the lungs themselves are more like an absorber. They absorb the prana, and it's a little bit more like filtration. So they soak in the oxygen because they're commanded to and are receptive to it. And they release this carbon dioxide because they are moved to give it back. And that's why the muscles around the lungs are involved in fear. When you feel fear or anxiety, do you ever feel your chest tighten? Yeah. So if that heart chakra cannot tolerate the vulnerability of a moment, then the muscles will come in to self-protect. Not sure if it's safe to take the prana in here. Not sure. You know, there may be a time where this is adaptive and helpful in a situation. You know, you smell fire, right? And you don't want to breathe in that smoke. So, okay, like let's tense up and not breathe in that smoke right there. Okay, but hopefully you don't live in an environment where you're always breathing in smoke, and then you can like relax and let it go and breathe normally and comfortably after that. But if this happens frequently, you know, especially when there isn't something that you're really conscious of in your environment that is harmful, then you have to look at, is there some deeper problem underlying your relationship with the environment? Is this a deep-seated fear? Is it carried from, you know, some kind of past unresolved trauma? Or is it a fear of what's happening in the environment right now? Even if it means, you know, you have to make these decisions. Once you determine that, you have to make a decision to change your relationship with the environment. And even if it means not going in that environment for a while to sort out what's happening internally, or even just to get away from something that's not safe. Okay. Some environments really are harmful to us. Others are totally fine, and we're making them harmful in our minds because we haven't resolved something from our past. And there is wisdom in the body. So we have to learn to listen to it. Yeah. So let's say your heart and your lungs are doing well, then your heart chakra energy should be strong, right? And then you could make these decisions following your heart. We still have to cover the thymus. And I think this one is important and doesn't get nearly enough attention when we talk about the heart chakra. So the thymus gland, it's a gland and it's located in the chest behind your sternum. And it's very close in proximity to the heart and the lungs and the heart marma point. So in Ayurvedic medicine, the marma point is like a vital energy point or a junction in the body where physical and emotional energy can be blocked, or you can release it from that area. The marma points are situated in a space where tissues like bones and muscles and tendons, blood vessels, nerves, joints, they all kind of converge. So these are these very specific points. They're all over the body, similar to acupuncture, if you're familiar with it. This is from the Indian system, the marma points. So the thymus gland plays an important role here in this heart chakra or this heart marma point. And it plays a very important role in your immune system because the thymus gland is what helps produce T cells. And those T cells are what help you fight infections and diseases. And it's also involved in maturation development of white blood cells, right? So all things that are there that are protective to your body. These are all things that are protective to your body. And the connection to the heart marma point may suggest that this thymus gland and the heart are closely intertwined energetically, and both of them playing a role in your body's immune response and also in your emotional well-being. So stimulating the heart marma, during an Ayurvedic therapy or even on yourself may improve that function of that thymus gland and enhance your immune function. And this can, benefit you because there's something inside us that knows what is beneficial and what is harmful to the body. There's something inside us that already knows this. This is how the body maintains homeostasis as things are changing around us. And it's not a conscious process when your body does it. Your body just knows how to do it. It has wisdom. This is what the wisdom of the body is all about. Your body knows how to keep yourself protected. Your body knows how to adjust to different changes in the environment and keep your functioning balanced as the environment is changing around you, as you get introduced to things that may be harmful, may be beneficial, may be what you're used to, maybe too much of what you've been having. Your body knows how to make these adjustments. What we want is for our mind to have the same kind of wisdom that our body has, the kind of wisdom that knows the best moves to make, when to sweat, when to pee, when to get up and stretch or yawn, or when to cry. Can our minds be that wise? But then why is it so difficult when our conscious minds are trying to make decisions about worldly things that are happening in the world? Yeah. It's because our minds can travel farther out into space than our physical bodies can. And this means that sometimes we are evaluating things that are not here and now, right in front of us to be made. There's actually not a decision right now to be made. We're making it bigger than it is. And these decisions that we're making when they're really far out in the future, that we're trying to, project something forward, that's not in the same physical space with us right now where our body is. Because if we were evaluating things in our physical space, then we could use our external senses for it. We wouldn't need our mind, but we can't use our external senses for evaluating life decisions about the future. The only senses we can use are the internal ones for something like that. The ones that give us feelings in our bodies. When we think about certain choices or certain scenarios that are in front of us, right? So we might think about something, of a certain scenario, And then we might notice how our bodies are responding and how it feels inside when we are imagining them. When our mind moves and we imagine it, and then we notice that feeling in our body, we can then think about this potential effect that certain decisions will have on us based on, how we feel in response to imagining it. Yeah. And we can maybe even project how this decision might affect others that we're connected to, like other people or other things in our environment that we're connected to. But either way, the thought comes up, the mind moves, the thought comes up, certain body sensations and emotions arise in response to these thoughts. This is very good. This is information. This is how you make decisions when you're trying to make them about the future, right? Otherwise, you make the decision right in front of you. Oh, will I have a salad for lunch or will I have a sandwich? Will I have a tomato in my salad or will I have an avocado? Will I try to have a baby or will I not try to have a baby? Will I go on a date with this guy? Will I not go on a date with this guy? Will I try to find a new job? You can use this for very big decisions or very small decisions, using the consciousness that is in your heart. So yes, get the head information. That's fine. But when you get the head information about consequences in the world and things like that, if you get that, evaluate it with your body. Notice, how does it feel in your heart? Notice how it feels in your gut. This is where all the wisdom is. And you might get answers you didn't expect. And that's okay. Because you need your body to be happy with your decisions. So remember it and factor it into them. Do not be afraid to follow your heart. So as I mentioned earlier, your heart is far more powerful than you know. So it's time to listen to it. If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. I get so excited. I get this kind of goosebump feeling when I get a booking from a new client that I haven't met yet. And I get so excited because I know that somebody has made a decision to go really, really, really deep into their healing. Because I know that Ayurveda is not a quote unquote normal thing that many people have access to, at least not in the United States where I live. So I know that when someone books with me, that they've really made a decision that they want to go deep into their healing. And so you could do that on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. You can book me for either a Ayurvedic consultation if you're ready to dive in, or you can also book me for a 15-minute connection call if you're not sure where to go yet. I do have a couple offerings that are not on my website, and we could talk about that. So I look forward to meeting you. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.